Hey there. Oh, you get to see my machine in the back. Welcome to, this is really bad lighting. Welcome to day 6. I don't know why I held up this, because I'm holding the phone with one hand. So 5, 6, it's day 6. This morning I got up, I had breakfast, I had an omelet with ham and cheese and green onions. So now I'm gonna get ready to paint more of my ceiling. That's my goal today, is to get my ceiling painted and done. I also at some point need to go to the store for cat food, but we'll see if I procrastinate on that until tomorrow or not. Today, painting, so come along with me.
I, in fact, did not end up getting cat food that day, and I was supposed to go do a physical for work, which I didn't think was going to take me very long. I'm going back to work for the first time in 11 years, so I figured because where I was getting my physical was close to where I work out, that I would just take all my stuff to work out. And after my physical, I would just go to the gym, but that is not at all what ended up happening. So I went into the physical at 11, no, 10. I had to be there at 10, and I waited a little while to be seen, and then they saw me and they had trouble getting my blood taken. So the poor girl, I always try to warn them because my veins are usually a little bit difficult. And she tried twice in 2 different areas, and then she called over another lady who came over, and then she tried to get it out of my hand, and my blood was not wanting to come out. Which I did drink a lot of water that morning, so I'm not entirely sure why it wouldn't come out, but after this moment that you're about to hear, I'll explain the rest of the story.
I don't think I'll ever get this again. I got it because it's like ceiling paint, and it's supposed to be purple and then dry white. And it is like purple tinted, but it's not like,
It doesn't look very purple.
I know, I thought it would be more of like a noticeable purple.
So, anyways, you got to hear me complain again about the purple paint that I highly do not recommend because it is for sure not purple enough. You can barely see the purple tint, and it is not worth the extra money for it. Just go with a regular primer or paint and use that instead of this purple one. So, going back to my story about my physical, so the second lady comes in and she tries to get blood out. She cannot get my blood to move. So they finish the rest of my physical, and then they send me over to the hospital, actually. So I have to now drive over to the hospital to their lab to go see a lady there to go and try to get my blood taken. And that lady then pokes me and also cannot get blood out. And she goes, hear me out. She goes, I want you to go into the bathroom and run hot water over your hands, as hot as you can stand until your hands turn red, and then I want you to come back to me, and we're going to try to get this blood out after that. And I was like, okay, I'll try anything at this point. Because now I'm going on hour 2 of being at this physical, and so I did. I went to the bathroom. I ran hot water over my hands until they were red. I come back to her. She pokes me, immediately gets blood out of me. I don't know if it was a circulation thing or if my hands were just that cold that my veins were really hard to get blood out of that day. But that saint of a lady was finally able to get blood out of me and get the blood work done for this physical. And then I had to take that blood and transport it back to the original building and make sure that they got it. And I just received word a couple days ago, actually, that I did pass the physical. I didn't think that was going to be a problem, and that I will be starting work next week. And I'm very excited about that. I'm not going to talk about what it is or where it is or anything like that, but I am so excited for this new opportunity of being able to start a new job and kind of get back on my feet again. Being a stay-at-home mom has been my world for the past 11 years, and I am going to miss parts of it, but there are definitely parts where I'm not going to miss. I struggled a lot as a mother, especially in the beginning with my youngest. I went through postpartum depression with her really bad. I went through some hard moments. I went through a lot of family issues. I struggled with my mental health in the beginning, especially with my youngest. My oldest, not as much. I didn't really struggle with her as much. And the two girls do have an 8-year difference. I just have the two girls. My girl here that you can see, she's 17 in this video, about to be 18 soon. And then I have my youngest, which I put in a video a couple days ago, or yesterday, I can't remember what day, and she is 10. I know, she's very tall for 10, but that's okay. We love it, and she is taller than me, which I don't necessarily love, but it's cool because we can share shoes right now, and she wears pretty cool shoes. So when she steals my shoes, I go steal her shoes. But pretty soon she's going to outgrow me on that, and I won't be able to fit in her shoes anymore. And my oldest just left the room. She comes back and forth a couple times because I spend most of the day in this bedroom just trying to get the primer on. I will say that I do draw a very hard line a lot with my children being on camera, and I make sure that they're able to know what the outcome is, the possibilities, and I will not put them on camera if they do not want on camera. This channel is not about them. They are a part of my life. They obviously will be sometimes featured, but just know that they always have the say over what gets shown and what does not get shown. My oldest is 17, almost 18. She can make that decision. Absolutely. My youngest, I make sure that she is aware and knows, and I try to keep it very minimum for how much that she is shown until she's older and truly understands what the internet is and what the internet does. I am trying to be very picky about where she is seen and help her try to make good decisions. Obviously, it's completely impossible to keep my family off, especially if I'm making a channel about me and doing better, because it's not always just going to be about me. My family is my life. My family is part of everything that I do every day. And so you'll probably mostly see my oldest in these videos more often than my youngest, but like I said, I do make sure that they're aware of what videos that they're captured in and when I'm filming, and I give them the option to be on the film or not be on the film. When my oldest came in here, she was fully aware that I was filming, and she was okay with me processing the footage still with her in the camera. So I actually find a lot of these things very fascinating, especially children on TV and children on YouTube. And I started becoming fascinated about it because of the Coogan Law. And if you don't know what that is, it is a law that mandates employees to place at least 15% of the child's gross entertainment earnings into an account, or like a trust, I think. And it's often called a Coogan account, and it legally safeguards the child's money, so it preserves it for them until they are adults. And the reason that this happened was because in 1939, there was a child actor by the name of Jackie Coogan who starred alongside actors like Charlie Chaplin and some other works. But when he turned 21, he found out that his mother had spent all of his earnings, and he had nothing to fall back on. And so then he helped create this law called the Coogan Law, which was now put in place to protect child actors. So there were things like the 15% that had to be put aside. Um, I'm actually going to read how it works today. Mandatory deduction. So employers are legally required to set aside 15% of the minor's gross earnings. Trustee management. A parent or guardian is typically appointed as the trustee, and the funds are placed into an approved bank, credit union, or brokerage firm. Access to funds. The money belongs solely to the minor. The account remains blocked, meaning no withdrawals can be made without a court order until the child reaches the age of 18 or legally emancipated. And state variations. While originally a California law, similar Coogan-style protections have been enacted in states including New York, Illinois, Louisiana, New Mexico, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. Traditionally applied to film, television, and theater, the Coogan Law has been updated to adapt to digital age because of the rise of social media and family vlogging has created an economy of young online creators. States have moved to protect them as well. For instance, legislation like California's Child Content Creator Act and similar laws in Illinois require monetizing family vloggers and social media stars to open Coogan accounts if they meet specific content and revenue thresholds. Now, what that is saying is, originally when the Coogan Law was put in place, and this is from kind of some of the research I've done, and if I'm off on some of this and somebody knows better, but originally it was just put in place for TV and movies and things like that. But with the rise of YouTube and family vlogging and the use of internet and exploiting children on the internet for entertainment and no pay, the law was then adapted to now work for those children as well, so that if they are on these family vlogs or if they meet certain criteria, they also have to be treated as a child actor, and they also have their own set of rules that they have to follow. Okay, you don't know it, but I was just on Google looking at what the rules were. So it looks like originally designed for child actors, California law was expanded to include minors employed as digital content creators on platforms like YouTube and TikTok. Under this legislation, if a minor is featured in at least 30% of the video's content and the channel earns a specific compensation threshold, a legal Coogan account must be established at a financial institution. These funds must remain locked until the child turns 18. Okay, so for YouTube, it's not just if they're on camera, it's if they're on camera for 30% of the child being on camera in that certain video. And also, it looks like here that there are several states that actually have deviations of this. So it says, beyond California, several other states have passed or introduced legislation mandating trust accounts for child influencers to prevent financial exploitation. So Illinois requires up to 50% of a child's earnings, depending on their appearance time, to be placed in a blocked trust. So Illinois is saying if that child is on camera, they get 50% of the earnings. Fantastic. Other states like Utah, Tennessee, and Arizona have also established or proposed similar legal frameworks regulating family vloggers, compensation, and the right for children to have their videos permanently removed when they reach adulthood. I love this. I love all of this. While Coogan's law is state legislation rather than a platform rule, Google, YouTube's parent company, adheres to child labor and financial protection laws across jurisdictions. Creators must comply with all local, state, and federal law regarding the compensation, work hours, and financial management of minors featured in their videos. I find this all so fascinating, and I am so entirely glad that there are laws like this. And I mean, among all of that, there are many of these platforms and many of these states that are requiring age verification for certain purposes, because you can't trust anybody out there. And to let your children run free reign on the internet and just post anything is wild, because there are some bad people out there, and you should be glad that these sites are being as regulated as they are and protective as they are of these children. So it looks like on some of these it's under the age of 16. They need parental consent, and there's a bunch of protection rules and internet safety guidelines. And I implore you to do your research, look it up. I'm not going to keep talking your ear off about this, although this is a subject I randomly will talk about in full force because it's just something that I know about. I read a lot of it off the webpage itself just to give you like an accurate description, or otherwise I'll just be like a ranting lunatic and make no sense about certain things. But that's okay. I just gave you a whole history lesson on the internet and children on the internet, so you're welcome for that. And it took up a lot of my time while I was painting these corners too, so awesome. And just like most millennials, I have a lot of weird 90s knowledge that just lives rent free in my head on top of wild amounts of SpongeBob knowledge or Rugrats. Those two shows, SpongeBob, Rugrats, I've probably seen every single episode of many, many, many times because I became hyperfixated with both of them. So I am not entirely sure there isn't an episode of either of those. I'm talking old school Rugrats, not the newer Rugrats. But I'm not entirely sure there's an episode of either of them that I had never seen or that I could not somewhat quote. And there are moments where I do randomly bell out quotes from SpongeBob, and that shocks people sometimes because that's not what you expect to come out of me. Also, Shrek. I didn't become, I guess, extremely fixated with Shrek, but I do use quotes from Shrek, and I do love Shrek. I find it to be one of my comfort movies. And these are all weird little known facts that you didn't know about me. I become hyper fixated on things like that, and I will just watch them over and over and over again until I become tired of it and move on to the next thing. I also do this with food sometimes. There are certain foods, like right now, I am very into rice cakes with peanut butter. It is my current hyperfixation food, and I've been forcing myself to only have them in the mornings, which I actually left this morning and did not eat that for the first time in a couple days because I had other things on my mind and other stuff to do. And I ended up stopping at Dunkin' and grabbing 2 wake-up wraps and a refresher, like a sugar-free refresher. And I was doing so much talking that I didn't even realize that my daughter came back into the room to chat with me. And I thoroughly enjoyed this process of painting and chatting with her because she always has so much tea to tell me, or so many things that have happened, and I get brought in on all of the stuff that is going on, and I get to hate who she hates and like who she likes, and I am so glad that we're finally in a place for the two of us where she feels comfortable enough to come and talk to me, because most girls that age, at least in my knowledge, I'm not entirely sure teen boys, go through a weird phase where they do not necessarily like their parents very much, and they certainly do not talk to them. But she tells me everything now, and I love these moments, and they are some of my favorite moments between us right now.
I'm a terrible painter. anyways, I'm gonna work on the rest of the cut-ins. I need to plug in my phone, so I'm turning my phone off, and then I'm gonna work on the rest of the cut-ins that I need to do, and then I will come back and show you an update.
So with my oldest, there was a time frame with her probably between the age of 12 and 15 where she became very rebellious. And I intensely feel bad for my youngest daughter because if there's something that Delilah could have put me through, that girl put me through it. I promise you she did. And I did not know that there was ever going to be a light at the end of the tunnel with her. I thought we were going to be drowning forever. She did not like me. She did not like anybody around her. She fought tooth and nail over what was right, and she became headstrong and thought she knew everything. And it was a wild moment to go through with her between those ages. And hopefully things are a little easier with Addison. Delilah has just always been one of those kids that if it's done the hard way, she's going to do it that way, and you cannot tell her otherwise. And especially if you try to guide her, girl does not listen. She will do the complete opposite.
If you don't take them off, and the other ones are slightly different size or whatever, you got like purple showing underneath your green, you're gonna be smothered.
That's true. You can take them off.
It takes like no time.
Okay.
So, speaking of doing the complete opposite of things, I surely was never going to actually take off any of these light covers or outlet covers, and so I got the disappointed dad look from my husband over it because I for sure painted over them. My theory was I'm going to replace them anyways. They're old. We don't need them anymore. And his was, okay, well, if you put on new covers and they're different sizes, the old paint is going to show, so you should probably take them off. And I was willing to fight about it, but eventually I ended up conceding, and I told him just to go ahead and do it. And honestly, I'm really glad that he did, but had it been me, I 100% would have just landlord specialed it and moved on about my day, because I'm very much half-assing this project, if I'm being honest with you. Very much. I do a little bit of touch-up in the closet, but I do not paint the closet. This door I do actually end up fixing at some point with regular paint. I end up painting over the door, and my goal here is to paint the outsides of the room and then move the bed and then paint behind the bed. And here he comes. He's on the phone pretty much the whole time with his friends and people from work trying to figure out his work schedule. But here he comes to save the day with his screwdriver, taking off the light switches so that I would stop painting over them. But at this point it was just too late.
I'm just saying, if you painted a beautiful green and your things were like shaved or a different thing and there was pink under it, you would be very disappointed.
Yeah, you're right.
And it just makes it easier to paint.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I just didn't want him to know that he was right. So, because he'll probably never watch this, nobody tell him that, because it will probably go to his head. He'll just be talking about that for the rest of his life, how he was right, and we're not having any of that because I am the one that was right here. I could just paint over them. It would have been totally fine. He did not need to take off the light switch covers, so nobody tell him that I actually really, really, really appreciated him doing that, because it definitely needed done. And I see in hindsight now why it was important to do, but just like my daughter, I love to learn things the hard way. So when I say I had a hard time with her, I probably know where she got it from. It was definitely from me. I may do things that way sometimes, and I become very hard-headed, and then I learn things the hard way and finally do the right thing.
Nobody tell him that I appreciated that because I was never going to do it. I don't think I cared enough. But good on him for doing it.
I think there was a part of me that decided if I was or was not going to leave that in, but I know for a fact that he's not going to watch these videos anyways, so it's okay to leave it in. He doesn't have to know. Alright, let's move on to another subject. What can we talk about for the next couple minutes? How about I just took my dog outside and I can't breathe out there. That's fun. That's a fun topic. To the people in Canada, I'm sorry, because it is hard to breathe here in Ohio today. I cannot imagine what those people are going through and people who live closer to where it is all happening. Those fires were a huge awakening for me because it made me realize that I don't pay attention enough to sometimes what is going on around me in the outside world, and I tend to live in a bit of a bubble, and that is unfair of me because I had no idea that this stuff was going on, that there were people out there who were fighting for their lives in their homes and their families. And I walked outside today and I thought that there was a local fire around here because just the smoggy chemical scent that was in the air was suffocating. I went to go to the car to load up a bunch of donations to take to the Salvation Army, and I was talking to one of my friends and I was like, oh my gosh, it's very smoggy out here, very smoky, it smells really bad. And she's like, yeah, it's from the fires. And I went, what fires? And then it prompted me to sit and do some research and figure out what was going on. So I hate that. And unfortunately, it's this time of year where it happens a lot because this time of year is around my daughter's birthday, and almost every year around her birthday there is some sort of natural disaster. Actually, the day that she was born, there was an earthquake. So I think she was just destined to shake the world from birth, right? I'm sorry, I make light of things when I'm nervous, and I shouldn't, because this is a very serious topic. To those people who are affected, truly, from the bottom of my heart, I am sorry to hear what you are going through. Let's maybe change subject to something that's a little lighter to end this video on. I can talk about why I am painting a bedroom for myself and why my husband and I are deciding on having separate bedrooms. That's a fun topic. It's not as bad as you might think it is. It's he works on call a lot, and he sleeps at really weird random times. And while that is okay for us sometimes in the summer because I don't have alarms that go off as much and I don't have to be up early, things like that, when I was a stay-at-home mom. But one, I am going back to work soon, so I'm going to be on a different schedule than he is, and I don't want my alarms to wake him up, or when I'm up and I'm getting dressed and I'm getting clothes. Also, kids are going back to school. We're going to be on different schedules with that. So I am painting this room for us to have separate rooms so that our sleep isn't disturbed during the day or during the night. There's days where he gets called at 3 o'clock in the morning or gets home at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning with the girls, which means I'm fumbling through drawers. If I don't remember to get my clothes out the night before, I'm trying to be quiet as I'm getting dressed. My alarm is waking him up. There's so many things that go on that we decided the best option moving forward, especially with me going back to work, would be for us to have separate rooms. And we are very blessed and lucky to have an extra room for me to go into. Now, I said before, this was my daughter's bedroom, and she wanted it rainbow because that was the age and that was what she was obsessed with, was rainbows. So I did her this rainbow room, and then she moved into a different bedroom, and this became the playroom. But now that she's 10 and my oldest is 17, the room just doesn't get used anymore. She doesn't really play with toys anymore like she did when she was younger, and anything that she does use or play with can go into her bedroom. She doesn't need the dollhouse anymore. She doesn't need the big things. So we made the decision to go through everything with her, purge the playroom, and turn it into a bedroom. So the next video you're about to see, I actually do a whole monologue about the fact that I left my book in my husband's car, and sometimes he goes on the road for a couple days, and that I was going to designate 30 minutes to listening to my audio books during that time to make up for those 10 pages that I couldn't read because I didn't want to read a new book. However, I'm going to leave my rant going even though you can't understand what I'm saying, but I ended up editing out the noise because in the background I wasn't thinking. I had two fans blowing plus the ceiling fan, and the background noise was insanely irritating on top of me talking. So I figured I would just kind of paraphrase what I was saying here. It was, I can't read my book's in my husband's car, I accidentally left it in there. I'm going to listen to Audible for 30 minutes a day at least to catch up on some of my audiobooks that also need listened to on top of the paper books that I have. I just don't want to start a new paper book until I'm done with Verity Guild. At this point, I was running out of steam. I'm talking about the fact that it's almost 7 p.m. and I was tired. I had been painting the entire day pretty much, aside from going and doing my physical and the fiascos with that. But the second I came home from that physical, I was painting and I was doing stuff, and I'm also laughing about the fact that I got paint all over me. Anyways, this is ending, so I'm going to tell you thank you for joining me for day 6, and I hope that you see me for day 7 and so on, and I hope you have a great day.